All right, and we're live. Great. Welcome, everyone, to Iron Coder. This is a new team here at Code Newbie. We're just starting out, and I'm excited about it. My name's Jamal Hansen, and some of you may know me from Iron Code or from Code Newbie, but hopefully we'll see some new folks here coming in and getting involved with this project. So first of all, I wanted to introduce myself. I've been coding for a little while. I enjoy coding, and the things that excite me about it are making things that do stuff and work and solving puzzles. So doing something that is a series of projects that are coding challenges, like this Iron Coder project, is exciting to me. In fact, when I learned that there was an opportunity to work on something like this, I wanted to step forward and do it because it sounded like a lot of fun. As far as what I've been doing recently, I've been working with Python, and that started out at the beginning of the year, and I've been a code newbie in the Python area, and yeah, live in San Antonio, Texas, and am excited to get this going. So let's see, before I move on, did anyone else want to introduce themselves?
Sure, I'll go.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Saran. I started Code Newbie, I guess, a year and a half ago. Oh my God, it's going to be 2 years. That's terrifying. But yeah, and I'm really excited. Iron Coder was something that Jamal, I think that you and some of the Python people had been doing kind of like ad hoc and informally. So I'm really excited to formalize it and do it as like an official thing. And I'm excited because this is the first team that we have that's language agnostic. So we're going to put out problems and anybody can solve it in whatever language they're learning. So I'm excited to get some language interaction and putting all that together. So yeah, that's me.
Definitely. Thank you. And Derek, did you want to...
Now Derek has to go.
Yeah, you're the only one left.
Yeah, I'm all that's left. My name is Derek Gustafson. I'm been coding in C and Perl for a while. I joined Code Newbie as an attempt to learn Python, and I make my languages that I know, and I do love a good challenge. So I'm looking forward to what we've got to do here.
Great. Glad to have you here. And let's see, we had someone else join. Did you want to introduce yourself? Okay. Well, let me know. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward and talk a little bit about what Iron Coder is. Saran mentioned that it is a language agnostic project, and that is one of the things that I find exciting about it as well. So that means that you can do your code in the language of your choice, whether that's Ruby, JavaScript, Python, or whatever it is that you like to code in. It is a series of short projects or challenges. Each challenge is going to be lasting about 2 weeks or so, and we're going to be working on them individually. And those types of challenges will be things like things you might find on technical interview questions, or possibly you've heard of something called code katas, which is going to be small coding problems that you would work on to try to improve your coding skills. Or I would also like to be able to build our own libraries of challenges and whatnot that we can work on together. So I mentioned we'll be working on these individually, but we're also going to be working on them as a group because every week we're going to have a hangout where we can get together and talk about the problems as well as the solutions that we've come up with for those projects as a group, and be able to share both insights and hopefully discuss any and overcome any issues that we're having with them. So that's the basic idea behind Iron Coder, and I think it's going to be a fun one. So I'm looking forward to it. Before I move forward to kind of before I move forward, does anyone have any questions? Nope. Okay, cool. So why am I excited about Iron Coder? I think it's good to work on problems like this, especially in the case of the interview questions. I know a lot of people are interested in advancing their careers or finding their first coding job, or something like that. And like today's example, we're going to be working on Fizzbuzz, which is a common interview question, and being able to know the answers to those, having some experience with those, will help you to face them if you face them in an interview, and just the general idea of working through an issue, being able to approach it, take it apart, and tackle it, whether it's one that you're able to ultimately solve or not, I think is a good skill to have, to be able to break something down into separate pieces and attack it like that. I know that it's a good skill to have. So another thing that I'm excited about with it is being able to share solutions. We're working in different languages. We're going to be working on problems. Everyone has a different approach to how they work on things, and I find it interesting to be able to come in, look at the ways that people have approached things, and maybe how they did it in a different language, or how that language made them look at a project differently, and then compare and contrast those solutions. So let's move forward to how it's going to work. I think I mentioned the project's going to be lasting 2 weeks. So when you're interested to sign up for a project, go ahead and go to the Code Newbie page for the project, and I can provide that link a little later. And just go ahead and say that you want to get involved with the project. You'll be added to the Trello board, as well as we'll get your information for your GitHub repo where you're going to house your project, and then just join the meetups and you'll be involved. That's as easy as that. Obviously, you'll be writing some code and putting that solution out, available for others to look at and ask questions about, or maybe you want to ask questions of your own. But we're going to be doing that every week or so. Well, every week on Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be meeting up. The projects will last for 2 weeks, and at the 1 week marker, we're going to come together and discuss how it's going. Kind of a status checkup, and that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. All right, cool. Well, today's going to run a little bit differently. I wanted to run through the process really quickly. First, going through it as a single week. And so to do that, we're going to tackle Fizzbuzz, and we will take Fizzbuzz from the beginning and work it all the way through the end here tonight. And then if anyone wants to go ahead and tackle it on their own, make their own version of Fizzbuzz in their own language, and bring it back to the group, I think that would be great. It'll give us something to talk about next week before we dive into a full 2-week project. So, hey, Victor, how are you tonight? Thanks for joining. Awesome. Before we move ahead into starting to work on Fizzbuzz, did you have any questions, or Victor, do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
I'm Victor. Hello, everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing good, thank you. We just went through a quick overview of Iron Coder, and we're about to go ahead and start up with Fizzbuzz. But before we do, since I think you missed a little bit of that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
No, I think I'm ready to get started.
Okay, awesome.
See how it is.
Sounds good. Let's do that. All right, so tonight We are working on Fizzbuzz, and I'll go ahead and give you guys the option. Should I do that in Python or Ruby?
Is that really a choice? Ruby.
You want to do it in Ruby? All right, sounds good.
Animals here, yeah. Ruby.
All right, so I've gone ahead and made my own. Here, let me share my screen so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay. So I've made just a basic repo out here on GitHub. And if you want a link to it for when I'm done, I'll go ahead and paste that into the sidebar here. Try to avoid the tunnel of doom there. That's
I love the
crazy.
tunnel of doom. It's like an iron coder feature, you know?
It is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clone this locally. There's nothing in here yet. Just readme and a git ignore. So let's start up some Fizzbuzz. Fizzbuzz. All right, so let's talk about the basics of Fizzbuzz. Fizzbuzz takes a list of numbers. We can say 1 to 100 for the purpose of this, and it's going to do a little bit of transformation on those. It's going to take the numbers that are divisible by 3, and rather than outputting the number, it will output fizz, and take the numbers that are divisible by 5. Let's see, I have this written down so I can show that while we're doing this. Take those numbers that are divisible by 5 and output buzz. And if it is divisible by both 3 and 5, it will output fizz and buzz. Well, I thought I had it here written out somewhere, but I don't. So I'll just write it here in the code real quick at the top. So
You do, Jamal. If you click the first iron coder Fizzbuzz, that blog post, that has the rules. I think that's what you're looking for.
this on here. That is it.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, here it is. Starts with a list of numbers. If it's divisible by 3, output fizz. Divisible by 5, output by buzz. And if the number is divisible by both, output Fizzbuzz. And otherwise output the number. So I'll just save this copy. All right, so the first thing we need to do is create a list of numbers. And how do we want to do that? Okay. I will take that as a cue to go ahead and make one. I'm going to make one up and then start a loop to iterate through it. So 1 to 100 each. My Ruby is a little bit old, so I don't know if this is the current style of doing it, but it should work. Now let's just test and see if this does in fact do what I think it's going to do. That's wrong. This is do. So we'll just go ahead and output that number for now, and it's all looking good. We are outputting numbers 1 through 100. Okay. So to see if that number is divisible by 3, I think is our next step. Does anyone have any thoughts on how we would do that?
Having never written any Ruby in my life,
Just in pseudocode.
I would say that
code.
I would say that there should be some sort of module we can do 3 and compare it against 0.
Okay, sounds good. I think you faded out there a little bit, but I think I heard you say modulo, which...
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So let's say, for fun, we'll say, let's see, we'll call it fizz equals... You know what, for now, let's just make sure we got our syntax right on modulo, and we'll just output modulo of I. Let's see. No. So fizz equals I mod 3. Okay, so that looks like it's working. We have our number, and then we have the mod 3 after it, and it appears to be doing what we want it to do. Okay, and then so I think we would see that buzz would be similar, but with 5. So we have the modulo piece working. We know when or the mod value or the remainder of yeah, I should probably explain that. Modulo. So normal division. What's the best way to explain this? So I know that when I first learned like long division back a little while ago, you would have a let's fire up IRB. So you would have, say, 12 divided by 3, and it would come up with 4, right? So, or I'm sorry, 3. And then you might have 16 divided by 4, that's going to come up with 4, but then you ran into numbers that wouldn't divide evenly. So if you had, say, 17 divided by 4, you would still come up with 4, but you'd have a remainder, and that remainder, oh, modulo, not, that remainder would be 1. So 17 is 16 divided by 4 plus a remainder of 1. Or if you looked at, say, let's do this. So 12 by 3 is 4. 13 divided by 3 is 4. 14 divided by 3 is 4. And once we get to 15, it would be 5. That's because there's that remainder. The remainder portion is going to be found by using that modulo function, which is the percent sign. So you go here, it's going to be 0 here because 3 goes evenly into 12.
Why is that? Why do we have like a modulo operation? That always felt very, I don't know, random.
That is a good question. I don't know, Gustav or Derek, do you know why you're a C coder? Maybe you have some insight into that.
I don't know. I know I've seen it a lot in C code, but the only time where you really use it is when you're doing, you sort of refer to it when you're doing bit masks type stuff, where you're looking at individual bits and you can do it through modulo arithmetic, but it's definitely there, so it's a holdover from earlier programming languages.
I think it might
Who knows?
be,
It's probably in Fortran.
Yeah, I think it might have to do with data types, where, like, so you have your int data type, and you can't really divide evenly, and they didn't want to round. And then you have your floating points, and I don't know, maybe at one point you only had one or the other. That's just a guess, though.
It may very well have to do with fixed point arithmetic
Okay.
that you would need the modulo for being able to do the arithmetic properly.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I never really thought about why. I just kind of always just thought of it as the remainder. Okay, so you can see here, when you do your division, it's going to stay at the whole number until it goes up to the next one, but you get that remainder in the modulo. So back to what we were doing now that we've explained mod. Okay. So here we are taking our number as it goes through the loop. For each number that goes through, we are taking the modulo value. So if that modulo value is 0, we know that it is divisible by 3. But if it's 1 or 2, that number is not evenly divisible by 3. Same thing here for buzz. So if the number is divisible by 5, when we do a modulo, we'll come up with 0. But if it's 1, 2, or 3, or 4, then it's not evenly divisible by 5. And just review. Here's your output. So for each number from 1 to 100, we're taking it. There's the actual number. Mod 3 has a remainder of 1, and mod 5 has a remainder of 1 because it's not divisible by either one. Same with 2. But once we get up to 3, it is divisible by 3, so it's a 0. But it's not divisible by 5, so it's not 0. So what we want to hone in on for fizz and buzz, and I think Derek said this earlier, was that the cases where that modulo value is 0 are the ones where we want to associate with fizz or buzz. So there, there, there. So let's modify our code so that it will output fizz or buzz in the cases where that is 0. That did not work. Oh, because I wasn't evaluating to see if it was 0. So in this case, it was coming up with a value. It was always seeing it was true. What I need to do here is to actually add that test for equivalence to 0. So what this is saying is that fizz in the cases, so if we got 0, we're going to do fizz. If we get 0 for modulo 5, we're going to get buzz. And then we're just outputting them like we were before. So if we look earlier at 3, we used to have a 0 here. And now we got a fizz. Let's look at the one that actually did it right. Here we go. So we used to have 0 there. We have a fizz. Here we have a 0 on 5. Let's make sure we got a buzz. Yep, we got a buzz. And 6 is divisible by 3. We got a fizz. So 15 is going to be the interesting case. We got fizz and buzz. So I think we're well on our way to having fizz buzz. Let's see here. All right, so really we have all the components. We've got fizz, we've got buzz, and we've got our number. But let's look back at what we're supposed to do. So if the number is divisible by 3, we want to output fizz. If the number is divisible by 5, we want to output buzz. If the number is divisible by both 3 and 5, output fizz buzz. Otherwise, output the number. Does anyone have any thoughts on how we're going to transform what we're currently outputting into that particular format? Just adding some notes here real quick. Some comments. Okay. So let's try something like this. About if is we'll start with this. Fizz equal fizz or buzz equal buzz and oops. Okay, here we go. Otherwise,
Well, you don't even need to set it to the equals, right? Because if it isn't set to anything, it'll just return false.
yep, that's correct. That is true. Let's go ahead. One of the things about Ruby, if you're not familiar with it, is that an empty string is going to evaluate the false. So we don't need to look specifically for fizz or buzz because they're going to be empty if they don't contain these strings. So if it's neither fizz nor buzz, this will evaluate the false and will go down, and we will output the number. So let's give that a shot and see.
Ooh.
That looks like a solution. Awesome. Cool. So I will go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and do the get thing here real quick. So let's check my status. Good. So we will add commit. Push origin master. And now we should be up to date. And if you go out to the link, you should now see. There it is, the Ruby solution. We kind of tore through that really quickly. Here, let me turn off screen sharing real quick. Okay. Cool. So we went through that really quick. If anyone's interested, we can go through it in another language, like Python, or we can discuss other stuff. If anyone has any ideas for a future challenge, I'm happy to talk about that, or really anything else.
I'd like to see it in Python.
Okay.
As a non-Python person, that'd be interesting.
Cool. All right. Let's do Python. Anyone have a preference of Python 3 versus 2.7? It's going to be about the same. Oops. We'll do Python 3.
I would always say Python 3, but I do object to 2.7.
So was that a vote for 3 or 2.7? I think that was a vote for 3.
As a Ruby guy, what's the difference between the two? I know that they're both out there, but what's like the main difference, and why I'd use one over the other?
That is a very good question. Here, let me this back.
Short answer is they broke reverse compatibility. They decided that they had made a bunch of mistakes in designing the language, and so when they just sort of they broke reverse compatibility and made 3.1, and then they went back and added some of it into 2, but there are still a number of things that are different, and it's just more of Python 2 is deprecated, but there's a lot of code bases that still use it because it was the standard for so long, and so you're going to see it around for a long time because a lot of enterprises aren't going to want to rewrite their entire code base to use the differences.
Yeah.
But a lot has been done in terms of the open source project, making them compatible with both versions.
Yeah, the break happened, it was quite a while ago now, and there's been a lot of work done to start bringing them together, but there's still some obvious differences.
The biggest difference that you see with people when, if you see someone live coding and they're live coding in Python 3, you'll see them type print and then what they want to print out, and then they'll run it and it'll break, and they'll go back in and they'll add the parentheses around it because print is now a function instead of a command.
Exactly. It used to be like a keyword, but now it's a top-level function, and there's a lot of stuff I think under the hood that when you get more advanced you'll run into, but that's the big thing that you'll see when you're starting out or something like this.
The other big thing that I know of is they made all strings Unicode by default. If you want a string of ASCII characters, you need to do extra jump through hoops to make it happen, and they have made the functions work in such a way that they actively discourage you from doing that.
Yeah, that's a good summary, especially from a newbie perspective of what you would see. It'd be different between the two. All right. So, Derek, I think you said 3, right? Is that the one we want to do?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then let's start that up. All right, so let me just check and make sure this is in fact 3. Yep, that is. Okay, and so in Python, it's actually the same operator as it is in Ruby. So if you do 12 divided by 4, you're going to get 3. Ooh, but in Python 3, no, okay. One thing that Python 3 does different than Python 2 as well that I found out is if you do that, you actually get 2.4 rather than 3. But it doesn't matter to us too much with Fizzbuzz because we still have a modulo. It's going to be 0 when you do it by 4.
/ it does integer division.
Oh, that's good to know. So, like, if you do that, it'll come up with...
Yeah.
Yeah, 2. That'd be correct. Yeah, I meant to do this. I didn't know that. That's good to know. All right, so armed with that, let's go ahead and start on Fizzbuzz, the Python version. Okay, so we want to start out with a list of numbers 1 to 100 and probably start looping through them. How are we going to do that? Right. Say for I in range. So in Ruby we used 1 to 100 dot each. Range is going to be somewhat similar. It's going to generate list. I believe that range actually steps 1 past. So it would be like that. And we use print rather than puts. So we'll just output that list to the screen. There we go. So we got our list that we're looping through, 1 to 100. Let's build it up kind of like we did in Ruby, I guess. Fizz equals, what is it, pi, mod 3, buzz equals pi, mod 5. And we'll go ahead and put that. So the way that I think you could do named formatting in Python, I typically use positional formatting. So that would be this, and then the first parameter I pass is going to go into this 0 spot. The second one's going to go into 1. The third one's going to go into 2. So like we did before, do that. We should see the output like we had at this point in Ruby. One thing to notice in Python versus Ruby, in Ruby you put an end at the end of your loop. In Python you don't. There's significant white space in Python. So the indentation here is required in order for Python to work. If you don't indent correctly, it will not do what you expect it to do.
Does that end up being really like annoying, or do you just get used to it?
I didn't think I would like it at first, but I have grown to like it because it's just less to type. But it can get confusing in some situations.
Like, yeah, it's like one of the biggest reasons why I don't like Slim and what was the other one? Haml, because it's like white space sensitive.
Yep.
So that's what it was. It like drives me crazy that I have to indent it properly. But
coming from C and Perl, I like it because in terms of good coding practices, you're going to do it anyways. So why not make it significant? And there's a number of ways that you can in C that you can mess things up. You'll see people, if they're doing a conditional and they only want, if they've only got one statement inside of it, they'll be on the next line and then they'll just tab it in. And then when someone adds another thing below it, they'll tab it into the same spot, thinking that it'll be included in the conditional, and it's not.
Right.
And so I actually like the white space.
Yeah, that is something I've run into with.
I guess the only reason why, specifically for Slim and Haml, it would be really difficult is it's hard to see when you mess. So it's hard to debug, right? So for Python, when you're debugging, does that make it difficult, or is it very easy to see visually?
I think the most difficult thing I've run into is when you're working with code that maybe was edited on someone else's computer and they had they used non-standardized indents. So like the standard is 4 spaces for a tab in Python, and that's important because if you don't do that when you give it to someone else, it may not work correctly, or if they edit it, it's not going to work correctly. So it is a little sensitive. Go ahead.
You'll also sometimes get code from someone where instead of 4 spaces, it's a tab, which works, but then you start mixing tabs and spaces, and visually it looks fine, but it's telling you that it's not the right white space.
Yep, there we go. Okay. Oh, we had someone new join. Hey, Oliver, how's it going? We are working on Fizzbuzz in Python. Cool. All right, so let me share this. All right. Works. I guess going to debugging, like you were saying, if you just didn't indent this, that print's going to go outside the block. So it's going to do this loop, calculate all this stuff, but it's not going to print it out until you're done. And so you'll only get the 100 value, which as long as you're doing like testing or kind of like we're doing with iterative changes, you'll catch it pretty quickly. But if you don't do that, or maybe someone copy and pasted it from the internet and handed it to you, then sorting out the indentation can be tricky. I think we looked at this and we got the. There's our numbers. There's our mod 3s, our mod 5s. Let's do that replacement of fizz and buzz when that equals 0. So in Python, how am I going to do this? So
I mean, your logic that you had for in Ruby should work just fine.
So that would be something like if that equals 0, then fizz. Let's try none. See if none works. Interesting. So fizz seems to quote doesn't print, but none does.
Do you mind getting your font size a little bit bigger?
No, not at all. If I can figure it out.
If you just do Command plus, will that work? There we go. Thank you.
So, all right, so now we need to do something with our formatting. If we have a fizz or a buzz, we know from the Ruby version, if we have a value in fizz or buzz, then we want to print those out. Otherwise, we want to print out the number. So we could try something simple like that. So if fizz or buzz, oops. Else. Right. Invalid syntax. So there's my
he's
there's my
programming in
parentheses.
Python 3, and he used the Python 2 syntax.
I sure did. my parentheses. All right, let's see. 3, we got Fizz. 5, we got Buzz. 6, we got Fizz. 15, we got Fizzbuzz. I think that's a solution.
Yeah, looks good.
Awesome. That's a really good thing. Stop there. So I think that turned out rather well. I was not expecting it to do it in 2 languages, but it was interesting to see the differences there. That's a good suggestion. So for the coming week, if you guys want to tackle doing your own implementation of Fizzbuzz, that I think would be a good thing to go through and talk about next week, and we'll also then next week start up a little bit longer project, one we won't be able to tackle in the Hangout, and move forward from there. Does anyone have any ideas or thoughts on what you would want to start on next week? I'm happy to provide something, but if someone has a particular problem or project that sounds good to them, I'm more than happy to look into it. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, does anyone have anything else? All right. Well, thank you all for joining, and hey, it's been fun putting that together. I hope you found it useful watching Fizzbuzz, and please come back and join next week.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Jamal. Thanks, everyone.